Hello, my name's Ben Burns of New Comic Games, and I'm here today to teach you how to play Ultimate Dinosaur Fighting. The game is actually fairly simple. The board is made up of a hex map. There are 6 different types of terrain tiles that you can put out onto the board. You can have as many or as few as you like. I've put a sample of each one out there. You have rocks, oil, rubble, water, ice, and lava. And the effects of each of them are listed on the board in the corner. Also on the board, there's 3 different effects that can happen to a dinosaur during the game. You can be stunned, paralyzed, or fallen down. They're also on the board. And the other thing on the board is the movement chart, which is important in the game. It tells a dinosaur when he can move based on his speed. So the game is a hex map. It's a tactical battle game, so being able to rotate and move your dinosaur and which facing he is very important. So you always want to make sure you keep track of what the facing is. Each player should come with a dinosaur. They come unpainted. They look like this, unpainted. They're quite heavy, so real heft to them. And here we've got the classic battle of the Triceratops versus the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Each player should get a player mat, and on the mat you'll have a picture of the dinosaur. You'll have its name at the top, what size he is. Right now we have mediums and larges, and in the expansion set an extra large is going to be available. His rotate, that's how fast he can rotate when he's turning. Larges can only rotate 1 hex facing at a time. His speed is 4, and what that means is he'll be using the 4 speed chart to determine when he gets to move during the movement phase. Also on the card is his hex facing values. So the reds are attack and the greens are defense values. So directly in front of him is the number 1 facing, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In the center is his custom attack. Every dinosaur will have their own unique custom attack that's just for them. If he had any specials, it'd be listed here. The Triceratops does not. And down at the bottom is his life track, where you use a clip to determine how many points he has left. Our opponent, like I said, chose the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And the big difference between him and the Triceratops is his custom attack is different. His attack and defense values will be different, and then his speed is a 5 instead of a 4. So he's a little bit faster than the Triceratops. Also on the board, I failed to mention, this is something new for 2nd edition, is the victory point track. So in 1st edition we had little chits that we gave out that you would collect for every victory point you earn. Instead, now you'll keep track of that using your dinosaur's token, and then and keep track of it around the track. Alright, the game plays in 2 phases. The first phase is a movement phase, and so on turn 1 you would look at which speeds have an M there. On turn 1 everybody has an M, so everybody gets to move on turn 1. When we get to turn 2, only speeds 5, 6, 7, and 8 will get to move. When you move, you're always just moving 1 hex, and you're always moving directly forward. Now, you can use your rotate before or after you move. So, for example, with my Triceratops, he can rotate once and then move if he would like to move here behind the lava, or he can move directly forward and then rotate. Of course, you never have to rotate and you never have to move. You can just stand there if you like. So he could just move directly forward. He's got the T-Rex where he wants him, which is directly in front of his pair of horns. That's his biggest asset, and it's actually a value of 16, which is the highest in the game. We'll get into that in a little bit. So when you're doing movement, you always start with the slowest player and move to the fastest one. So the slowest dinosaur in the game will be in the expansion. The Diplodocus will have a speed of 2, the Ankylosaurus 3, and so forth and so on. So the Triceratops, with his speed of 4, which is average, and the T-Rex with a speed of 5, the Triceratops will have to move first, and then the T-Rex gets to see what he did and then move afterwards. So after the Triceratops moves, the T-Rex, maybe not wanting to run directly into the horns, might rotate and then move forward 1. And that finishes the first phase of the game, the movement. In the second phase of the game is the action card. Now each player will have a deck of action cards, and they'll be numbered 1 to 15. They're color coded, so you're easy to sort and deal out, and all the decks are the same. What differs mainly is on the play mat what the values of the dinosaur is. So each one will have to fight differently. And like I said, the custom attack is different for each dinosaur. So if you're looking at them, there is a card, number 11, which is custom attack. And when you play this card, you're playing your custom attack off of your dinosaur mat. The game also includes mutations and tech upgrades. So if you have a mutation or a tech and you wish to play it, then you would play this card to activate that. The cards are played in the speed order, with the lowest numbers going first as the highest initiative. So for example, the fastest thing you can do is a speed attack. Then you get into defend and sidestepping, some special maneuvers, sprint and backup. And then we jump into our attacks: tail sweep, running attack, fierce, strength attack, and then your custom mutation attack. And then you have 14 and 15. 14 is rest recover. You mainly play this if you just want to wait and see what everybody else is doing, or if you are paralyzed or fallen down, you must play this to recover and get back into the fight. Run is also in the game. You notice it has a large negative defensive modifier. This is not for running away from battle, this is to run into battle. So in both of these, 14 and 15, you do not discard these after you play them. You can do them over and over again. All right. So after we finish the movement phase of the turn, then we jump into the action phase. So each player will have their own deck of cards, and so in this case, the player would pick the card he wants to play. For example, say the Triceratops wants to do a sprint, okay, and puts it face down in front of him, and the T-Rex looks and says, well, the Triceratops can't get to me this turn, so I'm just going to do a run and put it down. Alright, so then both players turn the cards face up, okay, and you start with the lower number and go to the higher number. If they're the same, then the faster dinosaur would get to go first. So if he did the sprint, he would get to sprint before the Triceratops. So in this case, a sprint allows you to move up to 2 hexes and rotate up to 1 facing before or after you move. So the Triceratops wants to try to get around behind the T-Rex, so he would move 2 and then rotate 1 like that. This kind of puts the T-Rex in a disadvantaged position, and but he cannot attack. There's no attack this turn, that says so on the card. The T-Rex not really liking that, and he still gets to do his run, which is a normal movement, so he can rotate 1, and maybe he doesn't want to be directly in front of those horns, so he's going to move forward 1 just to get away from there. And he knows that on turn 2 he gets to move and the Triceratops does not, so he will get to put that one back in his hand while the sprint gets discarded, and he cannot use that again until after 8 turns when you get your hand back. Games rarely go more than a full round of 8 turns, but sometimes they do. So at this point we'd move to turn 2, and we'd see that the only people who get to move are anything speeds 5 or higher. In this case, that's the T-Rex. So you might rotate and move on up here. Okay, while this does put him as a disadvantage on his flank there, it also has the Triceratops at a disadvantage as well. So and then we get to turn 2 and we do an action phase. In this case, what we're going to do is he might do a running attack, And the Triceratops also, not wanting to be left out here, but figuring the T-Rex, well, if he does do a running attack, he'll probably stay where he's at. So he might do a running attack as well. Okay? So you would then flip the cards over. Both dinosaurs did a running attack, which allows them to move and then do a normal attack. The T-Rex, because he is faster than the Triceratops, gets to go first. So he might rotate 1. This puts him in a good advantage with his attack 15 against a defensive 6 on the Triceratops. And with his -1 on his defense, he has a defensive 5. So he would roll 1 dice for his defense, so he'd have 5 plus 5 is 10. And then his would be 15 plus 2 is 17. 17 minus 10 is 7 points. So he inflicted 7 points of damage on the Triceratops. He would slide the marker down 7 points, and the T-Rex would get 7 victory points. Alright, so then it's the Triceratops' turn. If he didn't die or get knocked down, then he'd get to go ahead and do his turn. And he has the same thing. He gets to do a running attack, so he might rotate around here. He wouldn't want to move forward because he still wants to keep his front arc on the Triceratops. So now he has an 11 against his 9 minus 1 is 8. So he'd roll the dice. And he has a 16 to his 9. And he also did 7 points of damage to the Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can see the classic battle is shaping up to be, well, fairly classic. The T-Rex is slightly outmaneuvering the Triceratops, but luckily his dice are keeping him in the game. He would also get 7 victory points. I think I moved him up too high. So at this point the game is tied, but in a 2-player game you would just play to the death. In a 3 or more player game, because it will handle up to 6 players, as you can see on the board, there's a 2 mark, a 3 mark, and then a 5 mark. What that means is a 2-player, you would start where we started or one of the other locations. Means you would start with 3 or 4 players on this level, and then this mark is 5 or 6 players you would play out here. We've even played 7 where each player starts on the side and 1 player starts in the center of the board. Those games, instead of playing to the death, which you can do, it just takes a long time and you have player elimination and things. We didn't want to include that in the game. So in the standard game, you play until the first dinosaur dies. Once the first dinosaur is out of the game, then you finish that turn and you play 1 more turn and then you end the game there. And whoever has the most victory points wins. That's about it for how to play Ultimate Dinosaur Fighting. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to email us at newcomicgames@gmail.com. And that's really about it. If you have any questions, please email us. We'd love to hear your feedback, and thank you for watching.